Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to our next episode of Spiritual Lessons from Harry Potter. We are in book 2, which is the Chamber of Secrets. We are at chapter 9. Let me just double check. Yes, chapter 9. And if you are new here, my name is Zahra al-Jabri. I am a spiritual coach. I support you to connect deeper with Allah, with God, to really be able to implement spiritual practices in a way that is going to make you feel better and then experience life much better. All right, so let's get started. Got my Harry Potter glasses. I've got my wand, and we are on chapter 9, which is called The Writing on the Wall. And in this chapter, what's happened is that Harry and Ron and Hermione have just found Mrs. Norris, the cat, petrified in the hallway with writing on the wall that says, enemies of the air. The Chamber of Secrets has been opened. Enemies of the air, beware. And now, Mr. Walaikum salam. Thank you. Yes, these are my Harry Potter glasses. They're lensless. They're just party glasses that I got from a party and was like, I'm keeping these and I'm going to wear them every time I do my Harry Potter series. I feel like going to that party and getting these glasses solidified in my mind that I was going to do this series, because I've literally been thinking about doing this series for years. But I was like, it's too frivolous and not deep enough. But it's not. It's neither of those things. And who cares if it's frivolous? Let us enjoy frivolous things and relish in stories and lighthearted things. Not everything has to be so heavy and so serious. And when you enjoy a lighthearted thing, you can extract so many gems from it, which is what we're doing. So they found the cat petrified, and then Flinch comes up, and he's the cat's owner, and he immediately accuses Harry, right? He's like, it was you, you've murdered my cat. And the reason that he accuses Harry, right, they go to a private room with Dumbledore, and he's like, it was Harry because he saw that, he found out that I'm a squib. And a squib means a person who is born to magical parents, but they don't have much magical ability. And so Harry had found a letter that Flinch was a course that Flinch was taking on how to learn how to do magic and do spells. And he's now like very embarrassed and ashamed that, oh my gosh, I've been found out that I can't do magic. And because of that shame and embarrassment and guilt, he is now like, well, Harry's judging me, and that's why he's doing this. He's punishing me. He killed my cat. And this is such an interesting point, because so oftentimes, right, we feel uncomfortable or feel insecure about something, and then it can color how we think people perceive us, right? So Harry Potter doesn't really, he doesn't really like Flinch, but most students don't like him, and it's just because he's going around like yelling at them and trying to get them in trouble. But now, because of what how Flinch perceives that Harry is judging him, oh my gosh, he's judging me now that he knows I'm a squib, blah, blah, blah. Now he's like, okay, obviously he must be trying to hurt me or do something against me, when that is not the case. And this is so important for us to realize, like when we are insecure and then we see someone, doing something or reacting, and we make it about ourselves, or we take things personally. They said that to hurt me. They didn't come to, my party because of this. They're judging me because of that. They must look down on me, or think whatever it is, wherever our minds go, that make us kind of basically get in our heads that people are out to get us, or don't like us, or are leaving us out, or whatever. And it's just not true. It's just not true. So that is that first good example. And Dumbledore makes it really clear, like, this was really dark magic. No second year could have done this. So it was not Harry. And then while they're in that room, then, then they're asking Dumbledore's asking them, well, what were you guys doing on that corridor? You were supposed to be at the feast. What happened? And Harry here has an opportunity to share that he heard a voice, and that's what led them up this way. And that's why they found the cat petrified. But instead, he just says, oh, we left the Death Day party. We weren't that hungry and we were going upstairs, which all the adults can tell, like, is not true. Snape is like, since they're obviously lying. But the fear here of, like, what does he say? He just says, Harry feels like it sounds too far-fetched that he'd been led there by a bodiless voice that no one but him could hear. And since it sounded too far-fetched, he didn't want to share it. He didn't want to tell. However, we know now, right, that Dumbledore would have been open and willing to listen to whatever Harry had to say, or whatever any student had to say, that he would be open-minded enough to hear what's going on. Okay, you heard a bodiless voice, let's investigate, whatever. But again, the fear of, like, no one's going to believe me. This doesn't sound right. This doesn't make sense. I don't understand it. I don't understand what I'm hearing. I don't understand what's going on, so I can't share it. And that trips us up a lot too, right? Sometimes, we get put on the spot or we have something going on, and because we can't make sense of it or explain it to ourselves, it feels too uncomfortable to share the truth of whatever it is with others. So it's easier to just, say something that is, more quote unquote believable or plausible or makes more sense or makes sense to you that you'll be able to defend. Because if anyone starts questioning Harry, right, about, like, this bodiless, this voice you're hearing, all these different questions, he won't be able to answer them. And so a lot of us, right, feel scared to be interrogated or questioned, and feel like an interrogation or questioning will prove that, like, we're lying or we're inept or something like that. Whereas people are just usually trying to help understand, get clarifying questions. Maybe they'll ask questions that will bring to light some things and not just trying to, like, pin you down or put you on the spot. So that was a missed opportunity to say he was hearing voices, and see what that led them. Okay, and then we learned that they will be able to cure the cat, that there is a potion to be able to cure it, which becomes important now because the attack of someone being petrified is not life-threatening, although of course it is still scary and what's going on here in our castle. And after they leave, Harry asks his to Ron, like, should I have told Dumbledore? And Ron is like, no. It's even weird for wizards for you to be hearing voices. Good, and it's good that you didn't tell him. Which again kind of reinforces that view that people are not going to get it. People are not going to understand. And then in particular for children, right? Children do have it hard, that, like, they are thought of as, I don't know, we just don't see children as full humans, fully capable, and that their experiences are valid and true and honest and the truth of whatever is going on for them. We tend to dismiss children. You're lying, you're exaggerating, you're looking for attention, you're trying this, right? And so recognizing where they stand in the power relationship dynamics, okay, no one's going to believe me. And now, if you are following any type of, like, personal development, that type of work, we know how our beliefs and our ways we view ourselves as children, how it carries over into our adult life, and how we continue to view ourselves or hold back or not share because we adopted that way of being as a child, and then we just continue to be that way as an adult, even though as an adult, now you are in the position of power. More people could believe you and blah, 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 but you're still carrying that, like, oh, people don't believe what I say, or people don't trust what I say, into your adult's life. All right. And so now, Hermione is trying to figure out what the Chamber of Secrets is, and she remembers that it was mentioned in, oh, Nazinga's on. I know my glasses are not flattering. They are just for Harry Potter. She was so sweet. She messaged me. She was like, those glasses do not suit your face. And I just thought that was so nice and so honest, because it's not, so many times we're afraid of offending people or not sharing with people like what we really think or what we really feel. And I just really appreciated that she felt that she could be open and honest with me, that like, hey, I'm a designer, I know fashion, and those glasses don't suit you. You could try a different frame, and let me know. Because we just need more of that honesty and openness in our life. So thanks. But as like a Harry Potter fan, I think they're so cute. Okay, let's see. Yeah, so Hermione is looking up what is the Chamber of Secrets. And she can't find it anywhere. So she ends up having their professor for history of magic. She interrupts his class to have him tell them what is the thanks, Zuziga, what is the story of the Chamber of Secrets. And this is how we find out the history of Hogwarts. So Hogwarts was started by 4 wizards: Godric Gryffindor, Helga Hufflepuff, Rowena Ravenclaw, and Salazar Slytherin. They built the castle together. They, were bringing in magical students to be able to teach them. And then there began a rift between Slytherin and the other three, because he believed that magical learning should be kept within all magical families, and he disliked taking students of Muggle parentage, believing them to be untrustworthy. And then there was a serious argument, and Slytherin left the school. Okay, so that's what the professor says is the reliable historical account. But then, according to legend, Slytherin built a hidden chamber in the castle, of which the other founders knew nothing, and he sealed the Chamber of Secrets so that no one would be able to open it until his own true heir arrived at the school. The heir alone would be able to unseal the Chamber of Secrets, unleash the horror within, and use it to purge the school of all who were unworthy to study magic. So this is the first that the students are hearing of this. And obviously they're a little taken aback, like, okay, there's this chamber and it's going to purge, anyone who's unworthy. What does that mean? How could it be opened? And, Professor Binns is saying, well, the school has been searched. There is no chamber, no one could find it. And the kids are arguing back like, well, if only the heir can open it, that's why no one else can find it. But basically the professor shuts it down and is like, whatever, this is just a legend. Yes. And so that bit of background begins the bit of background that we are learning about Hogwarts and is important for us to, as we continue on this story. But it's also interesting as we think about, again, the issues of racism and ethnic differences and all of those things. So here in this this magical world, that the differences are on parentage and lineage of magic, and that, one person's view on that can begin to shift people, right? He had, in Hogwarts, there was three of the founders were open to teaching anyone, but one wasn't, and how that thought and how that impacted, the feel of not only his house, but of the whole school, and also that view in general in society, how it permeates, right? Especially when a person of a certain stature or a certain prestige or a certain amount of accomplishment holds a view, even if it's an abhorrent a view or it's all of this, how it can begin to feel good and justified, even though for most of us, right, if we're talking about our fitra, our natural state, our general inclination as humankind is to right, as they always say, right, children are taught to hate, is to see the commonalities and the similarities between each other. Okay, let's see. So then Harry and Ron and Hermione end up going to the place where there was the attack and looking around to see if they can notice anything. And they notice spiders all walking in a single line, which is a very odd manner for spiders to be behaving in. And then they also are like, where there was water here on the floor that night that the attack happened, where did that water come from? And they realize they're right outside the door of the girls' bathroom that is out of order, where Moaning Myrtle usually resides. And we're going to get into, obviously later, how this all ties together. But this is a point in the book, like, as you know, I am rereading this story, so I know what's going to happen. But if you don't know what's going to happen, it's just, you know, different occurrences, different facts, different pieces of information, different clues being strung together, and you don't know where to place it. You don't know how it all fits. You don't know, you know, what's gonna, when you reach the conclusion, what matters and what doesn't. And so that's the really beautiful thing about rereading books, any book in general, is that you can see how the author has put the pieces and laid them out there throughout the story, and that it only comes together at the end, right? It's what makes, you know, those like twist endings or magical endings or, you know, coming together endings so beautiful, so fun to read, so exciting, like, oh, that's how that fit, and that's where that came from, and oh my gosh, this is great, and like you just really love the story because like how the author brings it all together. And this is how Allah is in our lives, that there are so many things that you don't understand. Walaikum salam, I am doing well, thank you. That you may not understand about how does this fit together, like what is going on in my life, like this is random, this thing is random, this thing sucked, I didn't like, that was a good thing, but how come it was only so little? And you can feel like just a bunch of nonsense, right? Like it can just feel like I don't understand where things are going, and it'll only be in hindsight, it'll only be, you know, months later, years later, decades later, that you'll be like, oh, that's how it all fits. So the trick is, too, can you trust the author enough? Can you trust the author enough so that in real time now, while I'm living in this moment, and I am currently living in a moment that a lot of things are not making any sense, while I'm living in this moment, can I trust Allah, right? Allah enough to know that it's all going to connect in the end, and that it's all going to make sense and work out and be for my best in the end, so that in this moment, I can experience peace, calm, gratitude, appreciation for whatever it is that I like, whatever it is that does make sense to me, whatever it is that feels good now, and not get too caught up and hung up on the parts that I don't like, that don't make sense, that I don't understand, because spiraling in those thoughts will just leave me confused and dejected and demoralized. Whereas trusting, okay, Allah has a plan for me. This is going to all work out. I am going to reach, you know, whatever point further down the line and be like, oh, amazing, amazing. I love it. Thank you, Allah. This is awesome. I'm going to reach that point. So can I trust that so it can calm me down in the now? Does that make sense, right? The goal is to feel at peace now, right? That is what Islam means, right? Is to totally submit to Allah. How can you submit to Allah? How can you submit to anything? If you've ever tried to like do a trust fall with your friends, right? You cannot submit to that trust fall if you don't trust the person, if you don't believe that they're going to catch you, if you don't believe that they have the strength enough to hold you. You can't submit, you can't fall, you can't trust because you're just too worried they're not going to catch me, it's not going to work, da 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 da. And so what Islam is telling us. Surrender, let go of your need to understand, to explain, to make sense. Surrender in this moment and trust that Allah has a plan, a beautiful, magical, wonderful plan. And if you can calm down enough to be in that state of peace, to trust, to tell people honestly, openly, right? You know what? I heard a voice. I heard a voice in the walls and and this is what I'm thinking and this is what I'm doing and this is what I want. This is what I'm trying to achieve, telling your parents, I don't want to be a doctor or I don't want to be a lawyer. I actually want to do this and I'm going to surrender in this moment and believe that Allah has my back and will support me in the things that I want to do and my parents will come around. And move forward in each moment, surrendering and submitting, knowing that you can trust the author, right? So for those of you who have read the series, right, rereading it, again, so beautiful. Like, oh, it's right outside of Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. Oh, they saw spiders crawling in a row. All of these things. Okay, so now where are we going here? So then in real time, Ron and Hermione and Harry are trying to figure out like, okay, well, what does this mean? Who is the heir? And of course, their suspicion goes to Malfoy, right? And we already know in Islam, like, about suspicion. Don't be so suspicious. But they're like, how can we confirm our suspicion? And Hermione's like, well, we learned about a potion that can transform us to look like different people. We could use that potion, then we could interrogate or we could ask Malfoy directly, because if we were Slytherins, he'd be more open to us and tell us the truth and we can figure out if he's the heir. This is how we can confirm our suspicion. And so those three set off now on a path to try and gain some understanding. And that's how we end chapter 9. Now in chapter 10, Hermione has to get a book from the restricted section of the library in order to make this potion. And so they go to Lockhart for him to sign a note for them to be able to get this book. And the reasoning of getting a professor to sign for a book that comes out of a restriction section is that the professor has vetted the reason why the student wants this, what's it going to be used for, and that it's not going to be misused, right? And of course they choose Professor Lockhart because they're hoping he's not going to give them a lot of scrutiny because they want it for, mischievous purposes. They want to make a forbidden potion out of it and pretend to impersonate other school children. And when he does sign it, they're like, oh my gosh, he didn't even ask. He didn't even look at the book that we wanted. He just signed the paper. And basically Hermione just flatters him. And that's how he does it. And so, it's just another one of those points of like, when they tell you like flattery will get you anywhere and those types of things, to realize, you see this, that realize that some of the obstacles that we've put up in our way are not as rigid as we think they are. And it is true that like just being kind and open and thoughtful and complimenting people can open a lot of doors for you. And of course, this isn't like whatever, they're trying to trick their professor, but it is true in the sense of when you're talking about networking or getting ahead in career or whatever it is that you want to do. How can you be aware that, sorry, I got paused there. I set limits on my Instagram use and then of course I ignore them and I just keep using Instagram. Okay. And so now they understand, like, to make this potion, they're going to have to steal a whole bunch of things. And they're feeling like this is a risky plan, but Hermione is really invested in this plan and kind of like, okay, well, what other ideas do we have? And since there's nothing else, they're like, okay, let's do this. And anyways, to do this is going to take about a month. It's going to take a month to create this potion. All right, then they move on to talking about the first Quidditch match of the season, and it is Gryffindor versus Slytherin. And there's a lot of pressure, obviously, for Gryffindor to win. Slytherin has all new brooms, the fastest brooms currently available. And they get into this Quidditch match. And quickly, they realize that one of the bludgers... Do I have to explain how Quidditch is played to you guys? One of the bludgers, which is... Okay, I have to explain. Just in case anyone is watching who's not familiar. Quidditch is played with 3 players who are trying to score goals into, like, you could think of it as soccer, score a soccer goal. One keeper who's protecting that goal, and then 2 beaters who are keeping away bludgers, which are the ball that is trying to attack players and knock them off their brooms. And then 1 player who is the seeker, who is trying to catch the small tiny ball, the golden snitch, which is what Harry Potter's position is. So he's supposed to be catching this small tiny ball, and usually the seeker is flying high above, and so is not really in the moment by moment gameplay, because they're just focused on finding this tiny ball. And so the 3 players on each side, the 6 of those players who are trying to, like, basically be in soccer and score back and forth, the bludgers are mostly focused on messing up those players. But as soon as this Quidditch game starts, the bludger ball is fixated on Harry and is only trying to knock Harry off of his broom. And it becomes very clear to them as players that somebody has tampered with this ball, that it's trying to knock off Harry. But they decide that we don't want to, stop the game and do an investigation into what's going on with this bludger, because then we'll have to forfeit the game. So we just need to, play through it. And so anyways, Harry is dealing with this bludger. And of course, the object of the game is for him to catch the snitch. And so he's trying to stay out of the way to be able to do that. But they're losing because the Weasley brothers have come to help Harry with this bludger because they don't want him to get hurt. And he's like, no, you guys go and, deal with the rest of the team. I'll take care of this one bludger that's attacking me on my own, so that we'll have a chance of winning the game. So I'll have a chance to be able to try and catch the snitch. And, in an exciting game by game, moment by moment, play by play scenario, he is able to do that. But in the process, the bludger does get him and he breaks his arm. And when he falls down to the floor, Lockhart is there, and Lockhart is the one who tries to mend his arm, but instead ends up, instead of fixing his bones, he removes all his bones. So now he has to go to the hospital wing and have his bones all regrown. Okay, why am I giving you a play-by-play of all of this? In sports I feel like are some of the tiny little snippets of life, whether you play sports or you watch sports or you engage in any type of physical activity. It is little segments of life where you can have kind of the full experience of what life is about, right? Because in a sport, you understand that there is a game, that how the rules are played within this game, what are the roles and responsibilities you have in this game, how you relate to others. And you don't spend a lot of time questioning, why is it in basketball that, the 3-point line is here and you can only do this and this. You just accept. This is the parameters of it. This is where the 3-point line is. This counts as 3. This counts as a foul. This is for 2 points, whatever, right? Soccer, tennis, whatever. These are the rules. You accept the parameters of the game, and then you try to master yourself within it. You try to do your best within the parameters as they've been laid out. And who are the most successful people within any sport, whether it's skiing, or team sport or whatever, who are the most the best at those are the ones who master their own skill, right? They practice and they master their own skill. They understand the rules and they master their own skill. But then when it comes to time to engage in the game, this is the time where, they call it game mode. This is the time where they're in it. They're in it and they count on and they rely on and they trust in their training. And what that means is they're not spending a lot of time thinking, overthinking, and overanalyzing, right? That Harry is not spending a lot of time within the Quidditch match, like, why is this bludger out to get me? How come it keeps hitting me? This is not fair. This is not how it's supposed to be happening. He is just like, okay, I need to get this job done. I need to get this job done. And how am I going to now adjust given the conditions that have shifted within me, right? Shifted around me, that this is no longer a normal game. I have this rogue ball that's trying to attack me. How can I use the skills that I have and adjust to these changing conditions and still get to the result that I want to get? And what he has to do basically is stay focused, right? Stay focused, keeping those objectives in mind and just keep moving to be able to do it, right? He's like zigzagging all around and doing whatever he needs to do. And so if there's any sport that you play or enjoy watching or participating in or whatever, I really want you to reflect on it, to draw lessons from it, because, people talk about flow state, and it's very easy to imagine athletes getting into a flow state, or even think of your own self when you've gotten into a flow state doing some sort of physical activity, because it's easier to achieve that state of like not really in your head thinking and more in the action, in the physicality of what you're doing in an athletic event, right? Even if you just like go to the beach and like splash around in the water, right? You can just lose yourself in just the feeling of the waves and paying attention to the waves to not get swept out into the ocean, because you know that you need to be focused in the moment here where you are, so that the ocean doesn't take you, and you also are enjoying the moment because it feels so relaxing and thrilling and all of those things. So sports are such a beautiful thing. I relate to my husband a lot. He played basketball in college, and sometimes when there's things that I put it into a sports analogy for him, because it's so much easier to contextualize, and that's the way that it works. Okay, people are chiming in. I relate with horseback riding. Gotta accept what's happening and adjust in order to advance, move forward, and also enjoy. Exactly. And rely on your training. Yes, exactly. If your horse starts doing something weird, your horseback riding, it's not the time to be like, oh my God, did they not eat? Oh no, is there something? You just need to adjust and figure out and rely on your training. How can I, get my horse and myself to safety quickly, right? Or, in the most efficient manner without all of this mind drama. And the point that I'm making here, why I'm connecting it to sports, is because outside of sports, for a lot of us in our regular life, instead of just moving forward and staying in the flow state and in the zone, we spend a lot of time in the mind drama. But why is this happening? I don't understand, blah, blah, blah. Just all of this mind chatter that kind of prolongs and kind of intensifies our agitation or our suffering, if you want to call it that. All right. Okay, so now Harry is in the hospital wing, regrowing his bones because Lockhart is an idiot and doesn't know how to do the spell properly. So Harry's regrowing his bones, and in the middle of the night, wait, let me see. Just making sure I'm doing this in order. In the middle of the night, Dobby, he hears something, and Dobby, the house elf, if you remember from the very first chapter, comes into his room. And Dobby now starts telling him oh, I'm so surprised. I'm so surprised that you are here at school. I thought you wouldn't come to school when you couldn't get through the barrier. And Harry's like, wait a minute, how did you know about that? And then he realizes that Dobby is the one who blocked the barrier, and then Dobby admits it. He's like, yeah, I blocked the barrier. And he's like, okay, and now I thought, that my bludger would, my rogue ball would get you out of here. And he's like, your bludger? Harry's like, you made that bludger, tried to kill me? And he's like, no, never tried to kill you. Just wanted you badly injured enough so that you would, you would be sent home. And Harry's like, and are you going to explain to me why? Like, why are you like doing all these things to me, trying to stop me from coming to school? And Dobby's like, I can't explain it to you. And as we already have kind of shared with house elves, I don't know if actually we did share this, but with house elves, they are under special enchantments where they are to serve the family that they belong to until they die. They are basically slaves. The only way that they can be freed is if their masters give them a piece of clothing. And so their masters are very careful never to give them clothing. So Dobby wears an old pillowcase. And on top of that, they need to be faithful and loyal to their masters. And so every time Dobby now is sharing some information about, there's bad things that might be happening at Hogwarts, I don't want you to be here. And Harry's like, where did you get this information? Dobby tries to punish himself. He's trying to hit himself with the water jug, run himself into a wall, doing all these things because for going against his masters, he needs to punish himself. So Dobby is doing that again in this hospital wing. And Harry is like extremely frustrated. But then Dobby has to go because they hear someone coming in. So Harry doesn't get like any full more answers, but he's found out that Dobby was the one who sealed the barrier that prevented him and Ron from getting onto the train, and that Dobby is the one who enchanted the bludger, which attacked him and made him break his arm. And that Dobby still does not want him to be in school. Oh, and that the most important thing that Dobby's saying, the Chamber of Secrets has been opened again. So Harry's like, okay, there really is a Chamber of Secrets and it's been opened again. When was it opened before? And that's when he doesn't get the rest of the answers. Okay, but Dobby keeps saying, right, dark deeds are planned in this place. But Harry should not be here when it happens. Okay, so then who was coming into the hospital wing was Dumbledore and Professor McGonagall, and they are carrying a petrified Colin. Colin Creevey, the first year who was following around Harry, always trying to take pictures of him. And he comes in petrified with the camera to his face. And Harry pretends to be asleep and overhears Dumbledore telling Professor McGonagall, it is true, the chamber has been opened again. And Professor McGonagall was like, who? Well, who could have opened this? And Professor Dumbledore says, that's not the right question. The right question is how. How did they open it? And that is how this chapter ends. Chapter 9 and 10. And so we now have had 2 attacks. We've got Harry alone dealing with this new information. So a lot of new information coming, right? Things to reflect on and pieces to come together, and things that he didn't know the answers to before, now knowing the answers to, but still it doesn't give much, that much clarity. Knowing who closed the barrier and knowing who made this bludger, attack him, it's just to keep Harry out of school. But it's not giving him that much clarity. So sometimes that happens to us, right? We get answers, but it feels like lackluster. Like, well, what do I do with this still? How do I still go forward with this? And that's the place where Harry is finding himself in now. And just to note that place does that. Okay, I'm checking the comments. Someone says, oh, I never understood why he kept hitting himself. Yes, that's why. I don't know how they do things in the movies, guys. So if you're going off the movies, that's just a whole different experience. But we are going off the books, which I love. So, okay, we're going to keep chugging through the book. But there was another question here. Is there a book that explains flow state more? If you just Google flow state, there is a book. I don't know. There's a lot that's been written, articles, books around flow state. And it is generally this idea, which for me, I've kind of, when I envision it for myself, I Islamify it into essentially being in a state of total presence, where you are present and focused and in the moment, right? Again, think of any athlete, Serena Williams playing tennis. Like, she cannot be distracted thinking about what's going on with her children or with her business or this and that when she's on the tennis court. She just has to be focused, that ball coming towards me, hitting it back, and relying on her training, right? She's not even necessarily calculating, oh, I want to, hit it exactly in this way or use my upper hand or it's that state of how I'm Islamifying it. And this is just my opinion, my personal understanding. It's that state of your physical self being connected to your spiritual self, so that you are getting instinctual, right? Inspired action on how to respond and how to move in that moment that is going to get you the result that you want. Again, my husband watches basketball a lot, and like those amazing shots and amazing plays, right? The players are not planning that out. The players are not, yes, they've rehearsed different plays, but a lot of things, they're not specifically planned out, that I'm going to pass it to you here and you're going to be able to catch it and you're going to dunk it and then it's going to all flow. But each of them in their flow state already have practiced all those moves, so that they can sense they're getting their inspiration to, like, I'm going to step there. He's going to step back. I'm going to, that I'm going to catch it. Why we all, feel enthralled, feel in awe, feel exhilarated when we see these amazing physical feats, is because we are witnessing a person in them and their spirit aligned as one. And when you are in that powerful place, it's like magic. It feels like magic, right? A swimmer, a diver, a synchronized, dancing, whatever it is, it feels like magic. How did they do that? How did they connect there? All of that, because it's not just coming from the thinking mind of like, I think I'm going to do this. Blah, blah, blah. We cannot think our way into, amazingness, but our spirit can guide us into it. And so that's how I understand flow state. All right. Thank you again for joining me on the Spiritual Lessons for Harry Potter. If you don't already know about my coaching services, check my link in bio where I outline them all. I have services for relationships and services for, yes, it is like the movie Soul, services around career and finances. My husband does more of that, as well as I've also started a subscription here on Instagram, so that you will be able to get a more kind of like a program to guide you through the different things that we've talked about through these series. And then if you look on my posts that we have also discussed, basically the goal is to get into flow state. The goal is to feel at peace now. The goal is to feel the blessings and abundance and love of Allah in this moment, and expect for more to come as we strive for and reach for our dreams. All right. Assalamu alaikum.